United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight, taking part in your city business meeting. We have a public hearing tonight on bed and breakfast. Before we start on that, let me go over a couple of ground rules.
Off the record there.
Yes, we haven't started yet.
No, let's do it on a record.
Okay, do it on the record. Tonight is a bed and breakfast hearing. It has to do with bed and breakfast only. It's not for guest houses. They've had 3 chances at this and taken advantage of it. So they've been here and heard everything. Tonight, that's concluded, and tonight we're going to talk about bed and breakfast and the involvement with the new ordinance. So if you're a guest house owner, you won't speak tonight. That's over with. Bed and breakfast owners can speak, so that's the rule. Now the second thing is the person up here that's recognized as the person that's going to speak, and the only person that's going to speak. If you're going to talk to your neighbor or something, you'll get a warning, and then you're going to be escorted out. Because we're not going to have, like we did the last few times, where people are in the back talking, and we can't really concentrate. The person up here can't concentrate. We're trying to hear, we can't hear. So you'll have an opportunity, the bed and breakfast people to come up and talk. Everybody else, if they want to talk in citizens' comments about something that's not guest house related or bed and breakfast related, they're more than welcome to stay and talk in citizens' comments. But you'll get one warning, and then that'll be the end of it, and we're going to ask you to leave. We're ready, Dave, for the public hearing.
All right, so this hearing is being called to order at 7:05 p.m. on Monday, January the 13th, 2020. We're here in the Board of Alderman chambers at Hermann City Hall, and this is a hearing to discuss whether bed and breakfast homes, hotels, motels, and all other lodging establishments, along with bed and breakfast inns and guest houses, shall be regulated and require a permit, separate and in addition to a business license, per proposed new code section 420.050, as provided in bill number 2019-53. And I have marked as Exhibit 1 the notice of public hearing that was published in the newspaper, as Exhibit 2 the affidavit of publication confirming that it was published in the newspaper, and Exhibit 3 the entire municipal code of the city of Hermann, Missouri. Mayor Kerber, would you agree to accept these exhibits into the record?
I will. Okay, the hearing is officially started. I wanted to say a couple things first, then we're going to open it up to the board, and everybody that's a bed and breakfast owner can ask questions. The basic impact for all bed and breakfast owners is limited to the items in the ordinance, which are safety items for you to purchase and install, and there will be an inspection every year. And those items, I have them somewhere. Somebody can find them. We'll read them, but I think they're right here. You have to make an application and indicate the number of guest rooms. You tell us, I have 2 guest rooms to rent, and I can put 2 people in each room, so my occupancy for the building is full. That information has to be on your application. You'll have to have a sign that you place on the, excuse me?
There's a radio.
Oh, I'm sorry. A sign on the front door that lists the maximum occupancy, the name and phone number of the operator or their agent, and all the emergency phone numbers and locations of the fire extinguishers. And that goes inside the front door. Street address of the building shall be posted and visible at the building's front entrance. The exit signs must be installed over exit doors, that's exit doors to the outside. Smoke alarms shall be installed in each guest room and in the hallway on each floor. One charged fire extinguisher one charged fire extinguisher shall be kept on each floor, kitchen preferred for the first floor. One carbon monoxide detector shall be installed centrally on each floor. 2 avenues of egress from all guest rooms, example, a window and a door. A register shall be maintained indicating the name of the person renting the bed and breakfast home, and the room. That's it. We ask that you put the number of guests in their party, if you have that information. Sometimes you don't get that. And then, every lodging establishment shall comply with all requirements of the most recent International Building Code edition, and so that's that as well. And that's it. The total of all that comes to, if you have a 3-room, 1-story, it's about $104. I practice it at Menards, so you might get it cheaper somewhere. Some of these things you can buy you get 2 packs and they're cheaper. If you have a 4-room, 2-story, it's about $125. So we're not talking about a lot of money. The inspector, when the inspector comes through, will not be inspecting any of your private areas. Your rooms that you don't rent out, they don't get inspected. If you put down, we have 3 rooms to rent, she'll want to see those. And if you say that there are 3 people rent them, and she'll basically look at them and yeah, that's reasonable. If you're short a fire extinguisher or something like that, she's going to give you time to get one, so that you can be compliant. And so that's all, the only impact to any bed and breakfast person, and that's all there is. So, with having said that, I think we probably ought to start up here. Does anybody want to ask to make any comments, or should we just?
I got a couple. When you said on a B&B, now this is an owner occupied bed and breakfast, correct?
Bed and breakfast home?
Does the maximum occupancy include the people who live there?
No.
Just the guests?
Right.
Isn't a B&B limited to the number of, owner occupied B&B limited to the number of rooms they can have?
Yeah, it can't be more than 4.
Oh, okay,
Right.
that's my 2 questions.
Anybody else? Anybody? Susan? Bruce, no questions? Okay, then let's start. Is that number 1?
No, I'm sorry, they're probably not in order anymore.
Yeah, well, let's try and get them in order so we can take them in the order that they came. Number one is Nancy Sadler.
I just got a couple questions I just want to clarify for myself. So there,
I'm sorry, how much time are we giving them?
They any reasonable amount of time, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, something.
I won't even need 5 minutes.
Because this is something that, this is their public hearing and
Okay, I've got 5 minutes.
okay,
So there's no charge for the inspection anymore, am I right?
that's correct.
Okay. And for the occupancy, the sign you were talking about for inside, can it be on the wall or on a table near the door if it's not possible to put it on the door?
Yeah, I think that,
Okay.
yeah, near the door.
And what about the exit signs? Do we really need them at all in the bed and breakfast? And if so, do we have to put them over a window also?
Well, the ordinance says exit signs to the exterior so that people can find their way out in case of an emergency.
So you want one on a window?
No.
Okay.
Above the door.
Just the door.
If you only have one door that's exit, I guess you just have one.
Okay. Just a minute here. And I was curious about the building code thing, and I keep looking and I never find anything that really answers that for me in the building code. Is there any chance that down the road you're going to say we have to have sprinklers or anything?
No.
Okay. And is this going to, when you say that it's going to include, where does that say? I think all lodgings, what about those that are like Airbnbs that are not hooked up with the chamber, or maybe you're flying under the road? You're gonna be monitoring that and capturing?
What, I don't quite understand, what do you mean?
If somebody's renting out a room, but they're not, they haven't got a license or any of that, are you still gonna be monitoring that and finding
Yes,
them?
and
Okay.
they'll have to get a license and be inspected, even if it's one room.
And then they'll have to follow these rules also?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then, is there any chance that you're going to be requiring a conditional use permit for bed and breakfasts?
No, they're allowable uses in any zone.
Okay, and that's not planned to be changed?
No,
Okay. Well, that's all the questions I had, and I just wanted to clarify that, so thank you.
okay. Marlon, there's a couple seats up front here. Somebody needs one. Okay,
Can I ask a quick question?
sure.
So on the ordinance that we're looking at on number 4, where it's B4, exit signs must be installed over all exit doors, do we need to
Right.
put 2 outside to make it clear?
Well, okay, I mean, we're not, yeah, if you want to, all external exit doors.
To the outside.
Never say to the outside, not even in commercial buildings.
They don't?
No, they're understood to be to the
I don't think
outside.
we, anyway, we can do that if
If needed, okay.
people. Okay, the next one is, let's see, he doesn't have a guest, bed and breakfast in town.
Are you limiting it to only people who own bed and breakfast homes in town, or anybody who wants to comment on the bed and breakfast home?
No,
condition?
they need to own one, because this particular person has spoken 3 or 4 times before. Scott Engelhoff, do you have a bed and breakfast in town? Where are you, Scott?
Guest house, so I'll wait.
Okay. Okay, Brian, you don't have one, so you'll wait. Deborah Smith, do you have a bed and breakfast?
No, I do not.
Okay. Brant, do you have a bed and breakfast?
I actually do, yeah.
Where is that?
121 East 3rd Street.
That's, you own, you stay there, that's your
Yeah.
dock. Okay. That's across, that's, south of, on the south side of 3rd Street.
South side, no.
Okay. All right, well, if you have one, is that a separately licensed, from your 123 and your other ones?
Yes.
Okay. But then if you own a bed and breakfast, and it is 120, your address here is 123, and I know that's not a bed and breakfast. You're saying it's 121?
That's where I live, yes.
Okay. Okay, do you want to come and ask any questions?
Sure. I maybe would just make a suggestion, 2 maybe, that maybe people that live in town would have something to say here, so maybe they should be able to talk even if they don't own one. The other thing would be, you do need to be very specific on how you write a law, or you leave yourself open to be sued.
Okay, thank you, Brad. Okay. Oh, you filled out 2. Okay. All right, we'll talk about that when the time comes, I see that. And you filled out another one.
Yes, sir.
Talk about that when the time comes. Okay, and Mike, you don't have a bed and breakfast, I don't believe?
No.
Okay. Owen, do you have a bed and breakfast?
Not a bed and breakfast home.
Okay. And the other thing too, to answer your question, Brad, the people I'm looking at have already spoken several times, so. Rhiannon, bed and breakfast ordinance, I believe, just a second, I believe you, did you speak yet?
Today,
No, at one of the other meetings. This is the 4th meeting we've had on this.
I think I've spoken once before.
Okay, why don't we let's get you when we have, citizens' comments. Kevin, do you have a bed and breakfast?
No, sir.
Okay,
I'm sorry, why am I being put off the citizens?
because you've already spoken. You talked before.
Ever?
No, I thought you did, you said you did.
Not on the subject of this ordinance that's being
Okay,
discussed
come on.
tonight.
Yeah, come on.
A little confused here. Okay, Okay, so, this has been through quite a few metamorphoses. The last meeting, I wasn't able to attend because of the weather. I was not wanting to drive on the roads in the conditions the roads were, so I had to miss that meeting. During that meeting, another change was made that I found out later, which is that due to objections to a number of people in this room, a number of them who do not even live in this town, had decided that bed and breakfast homes, which we use as a definition of owner-occupied 4 rooms or less, had to be included in all the inspections and ordinances, regulations, as all the other guest homes. But my objection about that is a bed and breakfast home is kind of a different entity than a hotel or non-occupied guest house, standalone home rental, in that the owner is on the premises and the owner also lives there as their residence. And the nature of a bed and breakfast home is that more of a home. And it could include, as we have spoken in the past, just any person who wants to supplement their income and maybe rent out a guest room to somebody from time to time just for additional income. But from a guest perspective, it is still a home. And when we start posting signs everywhere, over every little nuance, the sign part is, I think, what bothers me the most. Because if I have a sign on my front door that says maximum occupancy 8 people, but it's my home. Nobody who has a home has that on their front door. And let's say I have a family gathering, and I'm having my family come and stay with me for the holidays. Isn't that a little crazy to have maximum occupancy 8 people when my family might consist of 25 people coming to be with me for the holidays? And maybe there's some children involved, maybe some of my brothers are having their children in the room with them, you know, during the stay. So I think that what happened when you threw us in the mix with the guest houses and the inns, I think you forgot that we live there, and that's our home. And I don't think I need to have, when I have a front door, has a glass pane that you can see through to the outside, to tell people that's how you get out of this building. Through that door that you came in when I greeted you, and has a window looking to the outside with a street view out there, this is your exit. I don't think I need to tell them that. And I don't think a little paper sign over the door saying this is an exit is going to clarify anything that they don't already understand. And I also don't think it clarifies it to be over their bedroom door and the door when they walked in the room, that this is how you leave the room. You came in this way, this is how you're going to leave. I don't think I need to tell them when there's a window to the outside of the house that, hey, if you need to get out here fast, go out that window. I don't think I need to tell people these things. And I don't want lighted exit signs, and I don't like the idea of on a home. Now, I'm saying it's probably a good idea when there's nobody there to greet people and check them in and take them to their rooms, on a home where the people are just arriving with nothing but a key, that it might have an occupancy sign on the door. But I think in a home that a person lives in, that you should not need to have to do that. And then again, I also agree with the fact that part of those rooms that are part of those spaces in the house are my spaces. My dining room, my kitchen, my bedroom, those are my spaces. Yeah, and I agree they should not be subject to city coming in inspecting those private areas that are my territory. So that's all I have to say. And I'm sorry that the city succumbed to the pressures of these other people in the room and their agendas to throw us into the mix of their category.
Okay, thank you, Rhiannon. Those are good questions and good points. I think that the group, it is important to say that we did not include bed and breakfast in our initial ordinance. But the guest house owners felt that everybody, including bed and breakfast and motels, should be included if they offer rooms. I think we can eliminate some of the signage maybe that is required. But their point was they should go by the same rules we do. And I think the fact that you're there all the time is somewhat of a mitigating circumstance. So I made some notes here, and I appreciate your comments. Okay. Is there anyone else? See, we've only had 3, I think. Is there anyone else that has a bed and breakfast? Please come up and give your name and tell who you are.
Judy Gregerson. Gregerson. Gregersen. Thank you. Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything, but after listening to Brianna, I agree the same thing.
Okay.
I live in my house. I do not want a sign on my front door that looks like through hers saying 8 people can be in here. I think it'll look tacky. I mean, I don't have any signs on my front door because I think they would look tacky. So I do agree with her that I think some of this signage, when you live in the house and you're there all the time, and then greet the people, bring them in, show them where to go, how to get out. I mean, I don't think we need all these signs.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Please.
I will do it too.
Sure.
Jim Allen, 5 Stonehill Overlook. And again, I'm really glad Brianna made those points because this is a house, and I've stayed in a bunch of bed and breakfasts, and I have to admit, I've never stayed in one, a real bed and breakfast, that had an exit sign over the door. I've never stayed in one that had a sign on the door that says, this is, you know, blah, 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 these are the rates, this is the owner, this is, you know, it's emergency, blah, blah, blah. Because the whole point of staying in a bed and breakfast is to stay in a place that is not a place like that. It is a place that is a home. You're doing this because you're trying to avoid this other stuff. You're trying to stay in a place that is like staying in somebody's house. And it's not somebody's house if there's an exit sign over the front door, which, as Rhiannon said, is really obvious. I mean, if you go and stay with some friends somewhere, are you worried about where the front door is if you're staying there? You know where the front door is. You came in the front door. You went out the front door. You don't have this huge long corridor. So, no need for a front door, no need for
I've
sign.
got it down.
Yep, okay, I'm just adding whatever weight my big, tall body can throw into them.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Let's see. Debbie Smith? Debbie Smith, do you have a...
You just asked me and I said I don't have.
You don't have...
She doesn't own a B&B, but
No.
she's a private citizen.
Well, I understand that, and we're gonna take anybody that wants to talk about this, and give you, extra time in, how many people do we have that wanna talk about bed and breakfast and citizens' comments? And these have to be, you know, people that have some association and have not already spoken, in the guest house, so. I see 1, 2, 2.
I'm not sure what, the fact that I spoke a couple months ago, how that's pertinent to my question that I have tonight.
But this is for B and B. Okay,
I
so
was not aware of that when I came tonight. I
Well,
was basing this on the description that was in the
this is a
paper
separate
earlier.
public hearing for bed and breakfast. And, and we will let you talk under citizen comments, so
That's fine.
please stick around for just a minute. Okay, is that finish us?
And well, is there any discussion?
Yeah, I guess we ought to discuss this. You know, I've taken notes on the signage. I think some of the things like the smoke detectors and all that, they may already have those. But we'll find out. But the signage on the front door, the exit signs, and so on, I think we can work around somehow. What do y'all think of that? Should we adjust it to take those things out? Consider it, or what do you want to do? I mean, it wasn't our idea to put this in there in the first place.
I have to agree with everybody that talked. If you ever go and stay at a bed and breakfast, you want that welcome home feeling. And with any kind of signs and that, you're taking away that ambiance.
Okay.
So, I mean, I have to agree with what they said.
Okay.
I do too. It's a different beast. It's something different.
All right, we weren't even gonna have them at first, so, they're not exactly like a guest house.
They're not like a guest house, but then again, I feel like there's still some of the safety requirements they should follow, because they do rent to public. The signs, maybe not because they're there, but should they not be required to have a fire extinguisher?
No, I
Or
just,
in
I
case
just
of
said that
carbon monoxide.
just the sign on the door and the exit signs are all I made notes of. So the rest of it will be in
I
there.
would think that if they are in that business, they have a homeowner's policy, and it's probably a commercial policy, and their insurance company is gonna tell them, they have to have that. So they're already gonna have that.
And the
I-
smoke detector.
Smoke
and
detectors,
fire
fire
extinguisher.
Well, that
extinguishers,
should be in
carbon, I mean, it's,
Yes.
They should have it.
I'm
Yeah.
sure the insurance companies, that's something that they require for them to do business. I mean,
You don't feel they should be inspected?
well, I mean, I'm all for safety, believe me, but I'm just saying that if you're living there, it's a different ball of wax. Some of the guest houses, these people get a code when and nobody's there to greet them, nobody's there to show them anything, they just go in and they're there. That's a big difference, you know, I mean, if you got a balance scale, it's bunk, you know.
But I would hazard a guess that it's a good idea at least to have fire extinguishers, smoke detectors and that sort of thing. But maybe the unfriendly things like the exit signs and number of occupancy on the door. Those are the notes I made, so how would y'all feel if we left the others in, but we took that out?
I think that's probably a good idea.
I agree.
Okay. Jim, you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what is that, we're taking out exit signs and occupancy signs?
Yeah, I'll give you a copy of those on that.
So it'd be B2
With
and
respect
B4.
to
It's
bed and
number
breakfast homes
with
only?
only, right. Is there anything else? That's pretty much what I heard. Well,
Bed and breakfast.
okay, you didn't, okay. Gary?
Your name?
Gary Liebman, L-E-A, B as in baby, M-A-N. Just a small point regarding the ordinance. When you mention carbon monoxide, that is related to a gas, whether it's natural or propane, or an attached garage. So my suggestion would be that just instead of requiring carbon monoxide detectors everywhere, a place which is all electric and does not have an attached garage, there is no risk.
Didn't we have an issue with that, Bruce?
Yeah, they may possibly have a fireplace in that house.
Electric fireplace could be, but yes, if it's a gas fireplace, there's a lot of homes, Mark probably could say, don't have gas even coming to them.
I'm talking about a wood fireplace. You can, we just ran a call here not long ago with the carbon monoxide thing, and what it was a faulty flue, but it was from burning wood. It wasn't, yeah, I mean, I'm a firm believer that if it's not that expensive, require it in every house. It can save a life. I mean,
I would agree with you. I think the exclusions should be there, that everybody doesn't have to have one if they don't have any of these issues, which now would include wood stoves.
I disagree with that one.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Since we've had an issue with that, I kind of think, I'm looking now to see how much they cost, but I'm thinking 10 or 15 bucks, something
You can
like
get a
that.
combination of them now, you know.
Yeah, and so it would seem to me that rather than make exceptions for the inspector, we ought to just go ahead and leave that in there and require that. Thanks, Bruce. Anybody else on this? You've already spoken. What is it?
Well, I would just wonder, if somebody comes in
Come
front.
up here.
Sure.
Come on.
if we're taking the exit signs off for places where people live because somebody walks in the front door and obviously knows that would be the exit, people walk into my place the same also. And I would say many of the businesses, I walk every person into every room. I don't take vacations. We always have an employee at the end. So some of the exceptions for these smaller places, if we really are worried about safety, we should have these safety things in. Or if it's safety, it needs to be safety across the board. And really, if we're going to say things that don't make sense for one, how does that excuse work there but not at another place?
Most guest houses, Brant, don't have anybody that occupies there, an owner that's there. Most of them don't.
So could we carve out an exception for places that
We'll
always...
consider your comments, thank you. We've been through this, we've had 3 hours of testimony, and I think we understand what's going on. Okay, anybody that wants to speak, otherwise we'll get you later in citizens' comments. With that ends, we're going to end the session here, and we'll move on to the rest of the agenda. So, we'll give the corporate reporter a few minutes to get her things together.
We're out of agendas. There's a lot of people that don't have an agenda for the BOA meeting.
Anita, could you make more copies of the agenda, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
The next point on the agenda, I think, is our proclamation. Is Mr. Langill here? He's not. Well, I'll read it anyway, and we'll make sure he gets it. Okay, a mayoral proclamation for Mike Langill Appreciation Day. Whereas Mike Langill began his photographic career during the 10th grade graphic arts class, and whereas Mike has spent his entire career making still photos in engineering TV studios, and whereas he moved to Hermann, the prettiest town in Missouri, fell in love with it and began to promote his new hometown through his This Is Hermann website, and whereas his website started out with 25 people and has now turned into 2,600 regularly engaged members across the country who all love Hermann. And whereas Mike was awarded a second place finish in the Missouri-wide tourism photo contest, and whereas this year Mike won the Missouri Life magazine's annual contest for best photographer in Missouri. Congratulations, Mike, wherever you are. Now therefore I, Dr. Robert C. Kerber, Mayor of Hermann, Missouri, do hereby proclaim January 13th, 2020 as Mike Langill Appreciation Day throughout our city, and urge all citizens of Hermann to reflect on Mike's photographic accomplishments, which continuously chronicle and promote the town of Hermann. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of Hermann, Missouri to be affixed this 13th day of January. Mike, congratulations. We'll make sure he gets this.
He's out celebrating.
He's celebrating. He knows this is his day, right? Okay. I'll give this to Trish. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brant. Okay, the mayor's report. The rest of it I'm going to table till near the end of the meeting so we can get on with the rest of the agenda. City administrator's report.
I'll keep it brief too, for the sake of this meeting. I just want to thank all the city staff that kept their streets clear of ice and snow this past weekend. They got on it early and stayed with it, and I think they did a fine job. I want to thank them for that. That's it.
They did a great job.
They generally do a great job. In fact, as far as I know, they always do a great job. And
If you ever see one of them guys, folks, tell them thank you. They get a lot of complaints, but when things go right, people tend not to express those opinions. And they're human too. They like to hear occasionally a pat on the back that they're doing a good job.
when I heard them the afternoon that the rain and bad weather was forecast, they were already out. And I know that several times in the past year, they've actually slept in their car. When we had some of the more severe storms, they slept in their car or truck because they knew in a couple hours they had to get up again and make the rounds. So they really do a fantastic job, and they are dedicated. So give them a thank you. We appreciate that. Okay, the next item is an ordinance, and it's for discussion only. We're not going to vote, so it's discussion by the board. And there won't be any discussion. This has to do with the ordinance itself. So, Dave, do you want to read that? Well, we don't need to read it, do we? No. We're going to talk about it. This is, in fact, the ordinance for the guest house and bed and breakfast, and I think that we have discussed this over and over and over again, and we understand where everybody's coming from. I will, I'm going to talk a little bit about this when we get to another section in the agenda that has to do with the conditional use permit. I'm going to give the history of this. But at this point, if there isn't, is there anything that aldermen want to discuss on this? The first vote will be at the next meeting. It won't be voted on tonight, so technically we're not having a discussion in the public. That's already been done. So if you all have anything on it?
Well, of course I do. At the last meeting, when so many people spoke, and I was under the impression, and I am sure that everybody in this house was under the impression that the CUP, the conditional use permit, was eliminated, and then when we get this, it's back in there. And I think everybody needs an explanation of why it's back in there, and maybe that's what you're gonna do later on in the meeting.
Well, that's exactly right.
But I don't think that's the way we should do business.
Well,
I mean, you tell them one thing and then you do something else.
Nobody said we're gonna take it out, and nobody asked me that we would have a vote to take it out, or it's our indication to take it out. So the best thing is put it in here for discussion. We'll discuss it, and if you wanna take it out, then we'll have a real vote, and we'll take it out. So I think it's a much better way to do it than just go on what somebody's thought they heard. So we're coming up to that in a little bit. Anything else? Okay. The next one is, and I'll give a little preamble on this, and we do have somebody that wants to talk on this. It's a 2% increase in the city's tourism tax pursuant to the specified Missouri State statute. Tonight is the last night, please. Tonight is the last night that that we can pass this if we want to put it on the April ballot. The reason it's back on here is because we had a couple of aldermen that wanted it back on here, and we put it back. It's time sensitive. If it doesn't, we don't pass it tonight, then, and you still want to do this, then it goes to the August ballot, and we'll still have to have a resolution to do it. We don't at this point have any clear direction from the lodging committee, and Tourism Commission, I mean. And so, we don't really understand one aspect of it, which is if funds are gonna be used for the Welcome Center, we don't really know how much that is. I haven't gotten any numbers on it. The Tourism Commission doesn't have any numbers on it. So, we don't have to have them to pass it. We do know that 2% is enough to pay for, if we choose, the tourism director's salary, and then that salary would be available in the general fund to spend on other city projects, and it would be enough, we feel certain, for the Welcome Center, if that is what you decide to do with it. Other than that, I kind of leave that open to the board to see what they want to not get from. Jim, Dave, anybody have any?
Well, I'm the one that initially proposed this. I thought it was a good idea then, and I think it's a good idea now. The taxpaying citizens of the town, like I said, until this came up in the last election, most people in this town didn't realize they were paying the tourism director's salary. They thought it was coming out of the tourism fund. Times get hard sometimes, you know. You can relieve a $50,000 burden on our taxpayers and have tourists pay for it. I don't see a lot of downsides to that. That money could be used in a lot of different ways. I mean, unless we get a actually relevant project P-plast in this county, you know, our police department can always use extra money. And there are a lot of other ways that this money can be used to help the citizens of this town. The money that's not being used on them.
And one thing that I suppose we could use it for would be an industrial development person or part of one.
Absolutely.
But we don't have that function, it's not taken care of, and I think that we need that. Anybody else, Jim,
Well,
Susan, Mike?
As I brought up previously, and something that I vowed to, is to save money for the citizens. By saving money for the citizens, that's saving the general fund. And right now, the tourism director is paid out of the general funds. When supposedly the position was put into place in 2004, the tourism director was paid by a conglomerate of people, 5 different companies, banks and chamber. There's 5 of them. 15 years later, those have all disappeared. The city is paying the full salary, which is taxpayers' money. If we can do it with or without the 2% increase, because that's what the citizens want, and that's who's going to decide this. But with 2% increase that's supported by the tourism, meaning the folks that stay at our wonderful B&B homes, guest houses, and B&B inns, 2% more would compensate for the salary to be shifted over to compensation, total compensation, and help where it's needed to maintain a welcome center. Without that, we can still shift the money over, which will reduce some of the budget, but with the 2% increase, should be more than enough to cover those items. By shifting it over, as brought up last time at the last meeting, our city clerk noted that the money that we were short of this year, we had a Hermann Police Department vehicle that met all criteria to be traded and be upgraded. We cut it out of the budget because we did not have that extra $30,000 for new police car. And maybe we need some more street lights out here on some of the streets. Better training for the city employees. This money that would shift from the general fund to the tourism would allow that money to be used. If the tax does pass by the registered voters of Hermann, that money will be earmarked only for spent on tourism. But then that will open up where the city's everyday cost of doing business will have a little extra money in it. So I'm like Mr. Farber, I believe it's a win-win, a no-brainer, that we should have a 2% increase in tourism tax. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? You, Susan, or?
I would like to say something. I did a little research, I didn't have time to do a lot, but, and I don't want to reduce Tammy's tourism budget because we need it for the tourism industry. But I also agree we should let the citizens have a say, and maybe, they talked about where the money would go. It could be used to promote more tourism, offset tourism-related expenditures, fund capital investment costs, debt service payments on facilities related to tourism, provide funding for more festivals, cover expenditures that enhance the economic vitality of our town and enrich our community. Maybe the chamber and the city and the lodging group could support and fund a Hermann Area Promotions Committee to promote these things and promote tourism to help our town. It could help by maintaining an emergency fund balance to address emergencies and new opportunities, address traffic and added security for festivals and events, assist with police, public maintenance and advertising, capital investments and future improvements for needed tourism infrastructure, including parking capacity, because that's at a premium in Hermann, public restrooms, I think that would be great for our tourists, and address maintenance issues. So it's something to look at that we all can do.
I think one thing that's important to know is that we're just now getting in. Trish, I had a question. When will this take place if it gets passed in April? When will the new tax start to be collected?
I'm not.
Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. It's usually about 3 months afterwards.
So the reason I ask that is because in the March timeframe, the Tourism Commission will start to make their budget to be so they can recommend it to the board. And then the board would approve their budget, and they would have, in my opinion, they'd have to make 2 budgets, which wouldn't be that hard. One with the tax and one without the tax. And we would know by the time we approve our budget if it's been passed or not. But that would really give us a good idea on what they want to spend the money on. So I think they can figure that out. I'm pretty sure they have plenty of things they can spend money on to promote tourism. And I think that if we look at it that way, there is some planning that's going to take place. But we have to have, when do we have to have this be approved?
It has to be certified January 28th.
28th, okay. Certified by the 28th, which means we have to do it tonight or wait till August. We could wait till August and we'd have all the budgets in place. Do you have something to say, Bruce? Do you feel it?
Well, I kind of agree that I think it sounds like the answer. I've had several people that have guest houses and so forth talk to me, and I think the fear amongst, and maybe I'm wrong, the ones I've talked to is when we put that other 2% on there with the other taxes they charge, they think it's gonna hurt their business overall because the taxes are gonna be so high because they have all this added on to them that's not added on to like the restaurants. So I understand where they're coming from in that respect. I personally don't think that would happen. From what little bit of travel I do, I never really ask about the taxes, but maybe some people do. I mean, I don't think so. So I mean, I'm in favor of it as far as a solution, but I just wanted to throw out that there are people out there in that industry that are concerned that it may hurt them in the long run. I don't really think that's the case, but I wanted it to be thrown out there.
The other thing that you should consider for the alderman is that do we have time to explain and educate the voters that this is not going to cost them, it's a tax, but it's not a tax on them. And because you're going to want to pass it, if you're going to go to the trouble of putting it on the ballot, then you want to pass it. If you're not that interested, then leave it off. The second thing is, once it gets to the voters, if they don't pass it, then you're going to be stuck for a few more years. I just don't think it's right. We did it, but in the streets because we had a majority of the votes on the first vote and lost by 14 votes or something like that. But in this case, if we don't get it through the first time, I'm not so sure that when the next opportunity would be. So, we have two people that want to speak on this. If there isn't anybody else up here, Brant?
Thank you. Susan, you said you did some research on it. How much research did you do?
I didn't keep track of my hours.
Brant, you really should make comments here. And
Yeah, so, but you should keep your mouth shut.
I'm not going to put up with that, Brant.
But see, you run the meeting so that people, I have my 3 minutes.
No, you get plenty of time if you watch what you say. But we're not going to put up with that. I'm not going to put up with it.
You interrupted me.
Yes, because you were asking us questions. This is for you to make some comment about this tax, not ask us questions about it.
Okay.
Are you going to do
Can
that?
you prove that there is a net loss?
It's a question, Brant.
It is a question. Yes, I'm asking her a question.
All right, go ahead.
Is there a net loss for money spent on
I'm not going to answer any
tourism?
questions. I'm not going to answer any questions. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm not going to be put on
Can
the spot.
anybody tell me what our tax rate would be with this new tax?
For
Almost
being
14.
No, I'm not asking you. Can anybody up here?
Brant,
No, that's an important question, don't you think?
our tax,
It'll
listen
be
to me.
2% more than what you charged to.
What are we charging right now?
Well, you tell me.
8.75.
No, it's 11.1 with sales and lodging. You guys should know it.
Okay.
Next question.
Brant,
No, these are important questions.
okay.
Have you looked at where Hermann ranks with other cities on our lodging tax?
Yes.
Anybody? Where?
That's a question. Sit down, Brant. Well, we're not going to put up with this,
Okay, I won't phrase it as a question. I will make comments.
okay?
These people up here have not checked on many of the things that are very, very important to check on. They couldn't tell us the current tax rate. They can't tell us whether there's a net gain or a net loss from money spent on tourism in this town. That's important to know. I'm speaking, please. Thank you. And then, the next thing that are very important is where do we rank on lodging tax versus other cities? That is very, very important. And I have that information, but unfortunately, this morning I woke up in Guatemala, and I traveled almost 3,000 miles to be here. That's how important this is to me, okay? 3-hour boat ride, 6-hour bus ride, and 3 planes, okay? So this is very important to me. Have you looked at where Hermann will rank with sales and lodging tax as to what other cities are? We are going to get so expensive that nobody comes. When they say that this is a tax that the locals will not have to pay, that's true. But if you take money that's spent on tourism where there is a net gain from it, so if we put in $2 here, we get back more than $2. So if we start monkeying around with that, that is going to hurt the budget more than anything. But those things are true.
Right.
And it's shameful that you keep pushing these things without doing the homework. The last thing I would say is whether you agree with this or not, the way government's supposed to work is not that you guys come to a meeting where you say this is the last meeting where we can get this on the ballot. We should be talking about these things beforehand, not that you need 2 readings tonight, 2 votes tonight. That's rushing things through. That is not how our government is supposed to work. So whether or not you agree with any of this, understand I'm arguing mostly for these people screwing up the whole concept of the American way. Thank you.
The tax that we have right at the present is 8.975 for sales tax plus 3% for lodging tax. If we pass this, it'll be 8.975 for sales tax and 5% for lodging tax. That's not very complicated. The other thing is, on our, how do we rank? I will give you the chart, you can look at it. We're certainly, last time you said we were the highest sales tax in the state, which
No,
is...
I did not say that.
Okay. Anyway, thank you for your comments. When I go to Branson, or I go to Lake of the Ozarks, or I go to Columbia, first of all, I don't look at what the sales tax is. I look at what the hamburger cost me. And if the hamburger, in this case, or the room, is $100, and I know that I'm going up 2%, it's gonna be $102. I wouldn't even consider that. Now, if it's $202, I might get a little concerned. But we're talking $2 on $100. We're not talking about hundreds of dollars. So yes, we do know what it is, and we understand that. The reason this even came up when it did was because there was a suggestion or question that came from the Chamber of Commerce that wanted to know if there was some way we could work with them to help pay for the Welcome Center. That question came about 2 months ago, and that's the amount of time we've had to look at this, because we don't want to hurt the Welcome Center if we can try somehow to help them. That's been our situation all along, and that was the beginning of this. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be probably talking about this, and it wouldn't be a point of conversation. The reason it's on tonight is because we have to get this on the ballot or not. So there. Thank you. Mary, you want to talk about well, we'll get that. We're going to get that at the Welcome Center, if that's okay.
Definitely, but can I make one statement
Sure.
regarding the last statement that you made? I'm Mary Brunel, President of the Chamber of Commerce. You said that this was being put on the ballot because of the Welcome Center, the issue with the budget with the Welcome Center.
I said it was initiated because we received...
Well, I respectfully disagree with that, because it all has to do with shifting Tammy's pay to the tourism budget, not and out of the city general budget. That's where the conversation started, not with the Welcome Center.
Okay. Yeah, if we wanted to shift Tammy's, we wouldn't need an increase. I appreciate your comment, but we don't want to decimate or in any way affect the Welcome Center's operation. It's critical to tourism, and we're hopeful that something can be done to put the hours back and keep that going. Okay. Now that brings us to this matter of the sales tax. If it's your wish, we can take a vote on it, the election tax. We can take a vote on it, and if you'll give me a motion to accept this, a question?
Yeah, is it possible to still speak on that subject?
Sure.
When you hear the number 2% by itself, it doesn't sound like a lot. But if you take our 8.975, add our 3 that already exist, and you come up with 11.975, then you tack another 2 on, then you're pretty much at 14%. And you all are saying, when you travel, you don't care about that, whether it's 2%, 5%. Well, you're not looking at taxes. As a B&B owner, I find people do look at taxes. People will ask me, well, how much is it going to be with tax included? And I'll tell them, this room is going to cost this much tax included, this other room will cost you this much. Sometimes they choose the lesser price room. Maybe they'd rather have that jetted tub, but they're looking at their own budget. They know they're going to go eat at restaurants. They got to pay gas to get here, train ticket to get here. They're looking at their overall budget. Some of them do choose a lesser price room. Now, if they've chosen a lesser price room because they want to be able to afford that extra, they see it with the taxes in there, who's really covered that loss? Was it the city or was it me? Because they had to sell them a lesser priced room. So there are people, and people who buy gift certificates for other people want to know how much it's going to be with the tax included. There are people who are concerned. When I travel, I am concerned. I'm maybe not in your budget, in your price bracket, but I am concerned how much I'm paying for taxes. And there can become a tipping point where Hermann may be more expensive to stay at than staying in the Ozarks or staying some other place that they might be. Some people aren't considering just Hermann. They may be weighing between Hermann and another town that they might go to, Kinswick or some other place. So we can get to the point where we're costing more than we should for people. I mean, people already feel, I think, that they're surprised by the cost of rate of stay in Hermann. They're going, well, why does it cost so much to stay in Hermann? Well, because Hermann's an attractive tourist town. So when you're talking about tourism, your tourism itself is not just people who stay in hotels, but they're people who come here for the day as well, for restaurants, gift shops, and that sort of thing. So what I'm a little concerned is the collection of this tax and who's affected and who's in charge of collecting it is on the shoulders of B&B owners, because that's all it is a lodging tax. You're calling it a tourism tax, but truthfully, it should be called a lodging tax, because that's where the tax is coming from, lodging owners only, not the restaurants, not the shops, not the transportation in town, not the trolley system, it's the lodging. So you got 150 establishments raising funds, to give to the city for tourism, when you got so many other establishments benefiting from it. And when you take it to vote, you're already saying, well, let's let the citizens know it's not coming out of their pocket. Well, yeah, we had 2,400 people in Hermann. Right, it's not coming out of all 2,400 people's pockets. So yeah, they're gonna say, check, oh yeah, let's have the higher lodging tax. It doesn't affect me. It's gonna benefit me, but it's not gonna affect me. So that's why, and when you have more tourism, you automatically get a raise in tourism, because in your tax, because if we have 12, let's say this year we have 15% more visitors than we had the year before. You've just had a raise of 15% of tax you've been able to collect because we had a raise in visitors. So that's a number that fluctuates, that you can get a bit windfall if we have a good tourism year that, you may not the other years. And I think part of the problem with the people in this room is we don't get to see, or we don't usually get to see a budget, and maybe it's on your website, I don't know, a budget for tourism to know exactly where those dollars go. And we also don't know how much of it are you going to allow the Welcome Center to use. That's a vague area, that's a gray area that hasn't even been determined yet. You want to take something to vote, but you haven't even told us how much of it's going to benefit the Welcome Center, which we feel is important. I think the lodging people who are collecting this tax feels it's very important to have a good welcome, a strong Welcome Center. But there's been no discussion about how are we going to liaison with the Welcome Center. And I am one of the few people that didn't realize the tourism's salary was not paid out of the tourism tax. It always just made sense to me that that's the way it always was. It was a surprise to find out it comes out of general fund. But my question after that, when I found that out, is one, does salary need to be the salary that it is? Tammy doesn't want me to say this, but I'm sure. But why does the salary have to be that dollar amount, A? B, if you were to take that salary out of the tourism fund and you look at what's left, let's say what is our tourism? Let's say we have $110,000, I'm pulling numbers out of that because I don't know, $110,000 coming in 1 year from tourism tax. And we take 60 out for the director. That leaves 50. Now, what is that 50 buying? Councilman Linger had a nice little list of things that all sounded good, but how do we know what that 50,000 really is buying? And do we need everything that's on the list that the 50,000 has been buying? Do we need more billboards? It's just hard to know how you cannot operate with what tourism budget we've had already, how you have to say that the tourism director tax has not been, salary has not been able to come out of that. So that's what I'm not understanding, is why has it not been enough to cover all the bases so far? And if you can make that clear to us and how it's going to be used in the future, maybe it'd be easier to get on board with it. But right now, it just seems like a scary number that isn't going to solve problems.
Thank you.
Could I say something? I just want to make sure that everybody understands, those things that I talked about were ways that we could make this work and ways that tax could be used. I'm not saying that it's used.
Let me explain something, Rhiannon. I think our budget this year was 180 or so. Okay. Is the budget and the budgeted expenses, that's an open item. If anybody wants it, they can request it and they'll get a copy of it. I would say if there's interest in it, we should make copies for people, more than one. So that's always been an item that's available to look at, and you can see what the money spent on. The way it works is the Tourism Commission develops a budget along with Tammy on what they need to spend for the next year, usually based on the amount collected that year. So next year is based on what we collected this year. And that budget then is presented to the board and it's approved. That is an open record. all the expenditures that you have there are open for you. So I think it was, this year was a 180, I believe. And the other thing to clear up is, I would not be for or support taking the whole amount of Tammy's salary out of the tourism budget in any one year. I would say if they're gonna do that, the board decides they wanna do that, they should phase into it. Now, I'll also say that it's not for me to decide that. They vote on it. But I don't think that a large amount of money should be taken, because I think it's gonna hurt the tourism effort and the promotional effort that we have. We have this working. We had another record in lodging this year, up 9%. And this has gone on for like 7 or 8 years, or 6 or 8 years, where every year is higher than the year before. And it's really been a good year. And we were closed a lot of the year. We had floods, we had events canceled, we had Amtrak closed, we had the RV park closed, and we still were 9% above last year. So I'm not for really putting a giant hammer on that. I don't think that would be a good idea. Here again, this is an issue that the board can decide. I think, Tom, do you want to say something about it?
Well, just real brief. I touched on it last time, and then I also Googled questions like, what does increased tourism tax, how does that affect tourism? And there's a lot of really nice articles about that don't encourage that increase. One of them that, and I know we're not Hawaii, but to your point, tourism in Hawaii affects 75% of the jobs in that state. 75%. So when you're saying it's not coming out of the residents' pockets, the business owners, every one of those businesses are affected by tourism. Almost every one of them, 75% probably, okay? So that said, I think it would behoove the board to delay and investigate again more environmental impact on what the tax, pro or con. I mean, I'm willing to take either one of them, but I think it would behoove the board to delay this motion until putting it on the ballot for August or whatever.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, go ahead. We're getting to the point where if you're going to say something that's the same as somebody else, save us the time, because we won't.
Yeah. No, I was going to say that I just derailed my train of thought there.
Sorry, that happens a lot to me.
So I'll get. Oh, so people that call are looking, or they're looking for places to stay. They're not looking for the tax rate. They're looking for the price of the room. And so, changing the price of the room by $2 or $3 is not going to, they're looking for 100 or 150, not 102 or 153. And also around the country, when you travel around the country, there are 15 and 20 and 35% taxes.
That's correct.
I don't know if you've looked at this, but I think New York is 33%. This is a lot of money. So when people who travel around a lot, this is relatively nothing compared to them. And they're not looking at the tax anyway. I've only had a few people that ever asked.
Okay. This brings it back to the board. If you want to vote on this tonight, someone make a motion and someone second it, and we'll have a vote.
I'll make the motion, we take a vote on this ordinance 2019-55.
We'll have a second anyway.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded to ask to put on the ballot a 2% increase in tourism tax.
We need to have a reading of it.
Okay, I'm going to jump the gun. Why don't you read it?
Bill number 2019-55, would be an ordinance authorizing a 2% increase to the city's tourism tax pursuant to RISMO section 67.1360, and for submission of the issue as to whether said increase shall become effective to the voters of the city of Hermann, Missouri, at the general election scheduled to be held in the city on Tuesday, April 7, 2020.
Okay, we have that read, and we have a motion made by Alderman Schumer and seconded by Alderman Fairburn. So we're going to take a vote here. All in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Okay, I have 2 ayes and no noes, so what do we do?
Well,
Wait a minute, I didn't get,
yeah, let's do a, how about we do a roll call? How about we do a roll call?
Well, let's do a roll call to get it straight.
Alderman Fairburn.
I said aye.
Aye.
Aye, I said.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We drowned him out.
I'm sorry, so we have a unanimous vote.
With reservation.
To accept this. Now, to get it on, we are gonna have to read it again.
We can't vote again on the 28th.
No,
And then 27th?
In by the
well,
Can
does
we
that
vote
give
at
you
our
enough
next
time?
meeting?
yeah.
So we could do it on the, you sure you'll have enough time to get it in?
Yeah, it's just a matter of me taking it
Okay.
to the courthouse.
Then we'll do the second reading on the 27th. Okay, good. Okay, good. Now we have a,
If it was possible, why'd you say it was impossible to vote at 2 different meetings? Why'd you say it had to be?
because it's a really bad idea, Brant, to have a vote the night before the deadline and hope that it gets on the ballot. So it's much better to do it and get it over with and give her 2 weeks to work on it than 2 hours. But that's what we decided to do. Okay, bill number 2020-01.
Bill number 2020-01 would be an ordinance to approve the legal services agreements between the city of Hermann, Missouri and Zick, Voss, Polite, and Richardson, D.C. for city attorney and assistant city attorney services and to amend Hermann Municipal Code section 110.160. And there is a memo attached from me proposing that we take myself and Kevin Richardson up to $160 an hour and to do it per hour rather than to do any kind of monthly retainer or a certain fee per meeting or anything like that. I think that's more fair to me and to the city because then you're only paying for time spent.
Okay, do we have discussion of this?
Yes, I have a little discussion. I don't have a problem with doing this. What I have a problem with is the bills that we've been getting because of the amount of time, which, if that continues on, we can't afford to do this raise. I mean, we're gonna be over budget on legal fees by the end of the budget because of, I know he works on a lot of stuff, but looking at the bills, I think there's a lot of it that doesn't need to be in there. All I'm saying is, if we approve this, we need to
tone it down.
Monitor.
Yeah, I don't know how else to say it. You know, we're spending too much money for him. No
When
offense.
does it take effect? When does it take effect?
I would propose it take effect whenever it's passed.
April
So
7th?
starting
No,
on time that I write down, beginning February 1 would be my proposal. Because it'll be passed, assuming you do a reading tonight and a reading on the 27th, then it would start February
Trish,
1.
how are we, we're gonna run over in legal service account, aren't we?
If we keep up the average monthly bill as we have been, yes.
Okay, and, but have we ever done that before at this point in time? Or have we transferred money in, or what do we usually do?
Yes, but we have to have the money to put
Okay.
it in the budget amendment.
Okay, so would you recommend, from
I
a
can
fin-
make the decision.
well, I'm just wondering, I mean, we don't want it to
I'm
go
sorry.
over, I don't know how to monitor it. How would we do that? Because we get a bill at the end of the month for time spent. And we do have some things we're working on now. What about, what do you think?
Well, I think recently, and everybody's here, how many times did we rewrite this ordinance? Every time it was rewrote, that was ching, 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 chinging.
Well,
So
yeah.
we've had a lot of that in the last month or two. I think we've had phone calls made to discuss other situations. So I think we need to, when we bring this ordinance as we do this guest house here, and you folks come and talk, let's have the ideas and don't just keep bringing it up new ideas every time. Be organized, bring the attention,
Right,
not
right
just
way.
you all, but that way maybe we can get it all rewrote one time.
How about you ask us before you write the things?
It's posted well before. But that's just an
Okay.
input why we had a little extra.
Well, I think.
We actually did ask.
Maybe their budget in, that was June, right?
Okay, so what do we want to do? Do we want to take a vote on this and promise to monitor this closely? What do you want to do?
Well, I think we should take a vote because we do need legal representation.
Absolutely.
That's of issue, so, and then they haven't had a raise in 2 years or so. 5, 7, okay, stand corrected. And everybody here would like to have extra money in the last 5 to 7 years, so I would suggest we take a vote.
Okay. Then, if that's the case, then can I have a motion to approve this?
I will move to approve.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Under old business, this was put on there because we need a definitive answer on this. The conditional use permit is in the ordinance, and I'll tell you why it's in the ordinance. The last year, the board determined there should be no more guest houses in R2 and R3. And that ordinance was written and sent to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Planning and Zoning Commission had a hearing and decided that rather than just have a moratorium on them, we would approve them, but with a conditional use permit, which requires just new people, anybody that has a new one, to come and ask for a conditional use permit to the Planning and Zoning and have a hearing, get it approved, and bring it on then to the Board of Aldermen for approval. That came back to us, and that's why it's been in ever since. Now, the reason that they put it in there, and I talked to Frank Tennant today about this, because they felt that there should be a hearing process, that the actual residents that currently own the property next to one of these proposed guest houses should be able to come in and see who's going to build it, maybe ask some questions, and at least know about it. The way it is now, and part of the issue with all the new ones is they can be approved and nobody up here or the neighbors even know. The first thing they know is when there actually is one that is being put in, which doesn't seem fair. And that was Frank's complete reasoning for requesting that it be put in, and it was approved by the Planning and Zoning and sent to us. So I have to say that I do agree with that. I guess I'll reserve some of my comments, but I know we have some people that want to talk about this, but does the board have anything that they'd like to say about this?
I do.
Yeah.
First off, when you apply for a cup, it's a one-time thing that you go to Planning and Zoning, correct?
Right.
And then after that, when it comes up to the Board of Aldermen the next year, the police department is asked if there have been any complaints, and that's all you do the next year. And then my next thing is, has there ever been an issue with anybody getting a cup? Have we ever
I
turned
can't find
anybody
one.
down? Okay.
Now, I think there have been a couple of cases where the people hadn't paid their taxes or their lodging tax or something, or didn't have a manager, and we have asked them to put it up for a meeting or two to give them an opportunity to fix those problems. But we've never taken, not given them a permit.
Okay. And then the cup, if we have the cup, then everybody has everybody can voice their opinion. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna be canceled, that they're not gonna get their cup, because we've never had a problem, and it's always been worked out. Planning and zoning, and a citizen that has one, they talk about it and come up with a solution. I think they decided to put up a privacy fence, so that it was better for the people that live there. Okay.
I think that has been suggested, but because there's a meeting, then the groups both parties can be there and be heard. So there's a opportunity to compromise, or at least get more comfortable with the person that's gonna put this business in next to you.
Okay. So then, every citizen would have a right.
The way it is now, the property owner in the neighborhood doesn't even know that this is going in.
Or an alderman doesn't even know until
Or an alderman.
their person
Nobody
calls
knows.
them and says, hey, I've got a problem over
The
here.
only
We
person
don't-
that
we can't say we
knows,
didn't know.
the only person that would know would be the person that took the permit, the person that filled in the permit, and me, I guess, and Trish, if we sign it. I don't keep a list of them, so I don't know where the places are all the time anyway. So, later, Brad. Okay. Is there any other, we've got people that wanna talk about this. Do you wanna say, is there any more to talk about here? We can come back and catch it.
The only question I have, and it was brought up earlier, the Airbnb people. Okay, these people that are doing that supposedly come to us and get a business license, right? What about the ones that don't, so they get by without doing the cup thing? I mean, we have to come up with a system to police that better, that if these people that are doing the right thing, and I was told today of a number that kind of shocked me of how many Airbnbs, if you go online, are in Hermann. And I know we don't have that many business licenses, that we need to come up with a solution on that problem down the road.
We do is Anita still here? Anita monthly monitors, watches, looks for unlicensed businesses operating like that. And now even in her role as code enforcement officer, she'll even be more thorough.
Okay.
And I also think that in the case of a guest house, having or a B&B, but a guest house, if one opens next to you or across the street, that's when we would get a call. And we would go check, and that's Anita would go and check and see what's going on. We'd find out if they have a license at current time and a permit, and if they don't, then they would have to get one or they'd be shut down. So there is a way to do that.
That's something Bruce had touched on, because I too have been told by some guest house owners and B&B-ins that there is some operating within our city, they're not licensed. I would feel that you guys would want to, I know you don't want to be snitches, but would help police within your own community, somehow letting us, because you guys see things that we don't see, you see things that law enforcement doesn't see. Is give us some guidance, because those are hurting you probably more than anything that we're doing right now. They're giving your own bad names. They're not safety, they're not being inspected. That's 100% profit. So I would ask that you guys police your own community and leave no names mentioned, but if there's something you can drop in the information box or something and give us some ideas.
There's another one, and that is guest houses masquerading as owner-operated B&Bs, and they are there. We know several. We have an inspector now. That's going to come to an end. you're gonna have to be on the up and up and do things the right way. Just a FYI.
Let's, we can come back.
I just have one question. Have you heard of
Would you like to come up and give your name?
Well, it was just in response to
Okay.
us policing B&B owners and guest house owners.
What's your name?
Kay, Richmond with Lucinda's. Have you heard of this becoming an issue with the RV park as well? It's been on social media.
Well, I don't know what you mean.
Well,
You mean people using an RV as a, renting it out?
and during special events to outside people.
If you
So-
know of this, let us know. I mean, that's something, actually, there was an issue some time back
Yes.
that we caught, that someone was actually coming to town, setting up a camping site, putting up tents, sleeping bags and everything out, renting ours, and then charging those people twice as much as what they were renting it out for. We did put a stop to that one.
And I do think that it was happening in the city park too, where they were coming in and placing, this is just rumor, but I know a couple of us had discussed it, so that's something.
If we hear of it, we'll put an immediate stop to that. That's one house on wheels, you know, you can move those pretty easy, so.
Okay. I'm looking at my list. Brian, Charlie, do you want to come up and speak about this conditional use permit?
A lot of you know me. I've been on planning and zoning for 15 years and was recently alderman for 12 years. And we've been through this process for a long time, especially dealing with guest houses and in residential areas. The main thing that we deal with on a planning and zoning level is we're an organized city that has industrial areas, commercial areas, and residential areas. And when we see, this guest house issue has been growing since I've been here, it's been growing, but in the last 5-6 years, it's really exploded. And so we, at planning and zoning, we're trying to take a step back and, hearing from citizens that said, some people have said they're taking away the amount of housing that's for sale for them for a young couple to come in and fix up a house and resell it, that type of thing. Whereas a decent house that could be fixed up is bought up right away to be turned into a guest house. So this idea of a conditional use permit was to say that, well, it first started off as there had to be some kind of special condition with the property. So sometimes maybe it wasn't connected to the utilities properly, or it was a really run-down property, or there was one where a lady was put into a nursing home and wanted to maintain the revenue. So it was put through the conditional use permit so that it could be used as an unoccupied guest house. So we didn't want to, and the idea was, okay, let's put a moratorium on this and take a step back and get the rules in place and figure out how we want to limit these. Are they going to, like I said, they recently doubled in size, in number. I don't know the exact year, but somewhere in the 4, 5, 6 year range, it's doubled. So we wanted to step back and say, how quickly is this going to double again? And do we want to protect our neighborhoods from becoming shells of houses and shells of neighborhoods that are vacant during the week, and we don't have, we've seen declining school enrollment, we've seen declining volunteers in all of our volunteer organizations, churches, and that type of thing. And we wanted to take a broader look and say, what can we do to protect our residential areas and at the same time have commercial areas available for people to buy and turn into guest houses. And so this was a way of saying, okay, well, we're not going to completely shut off R2 and R3, but we'll have this conditional use permit for when there's a special situation where somebody says, hey, I can connect this house to the utilities, or I can do this, 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 and this, and the neighbors can get a say in, okay, yeah, this sounds like a good idea, let's go ahead and do it. In the past, the conditional use permit was just, it just automatically passed, no matter what the neighbor said or whatever happened. Well, what happened is we worked out. You know, like the one next to my house was the one they were talking about with the privacy fence, and there was a lot of issues back and forth. And so that's kind of why in reality, why they all get passed is because they get worked out at the planning and zoning level if there's any issues. So I think the conditional use permit part should stay in there for R2 and R3. I think it's a good way for everyone to get on the same page and to make sure that there's good reason for a guest house in a residential area, because honestly, the residential area is for people to live in, not for people to own a business in. And that's what it boils down to, is that we have commercial zones, we have industrial zones, and we have residential zones. And when you see this happening and doubling as fast as it did, you have to take a step back and say, are we going to protect our houses? Are we going to protect our neighborhoods? Are we going to protect our community? Or are we just going to let it spread however it spreads? And so I just wanted to get that out there to remind you guys what we've been through and to let you know that I think it's very important for the citizens and the neighborhoods in R2 and R3 that the conditional use permit process stays in place.
There's also other kinds of businesses and residents all throughout town. I mean.
Not new businesses.
Not new ones.
There's home-based businesses, yeah, they live there. What I'm saying is, people will buy a house in R2 and R3, gut out the closets and put in bathrooms, and that house is never gonna be sold as a residential home again. Those are the types of things that are happening. And I'm saying that once you get into this, you see that you need to protect it. You need to have some protection that people are either gonna live there or there's gonna be a good reason why it should be turned into a business.
Well, there's already,
Bruce,
I'm not gonna argue with it.
No, I hear what you're saying. I think that some of our homes were here well before we had planning and zoning, and we allow people to carry on the business if they fill out the proper application and get the permit for a home business, and they have regulations on them, but they live there.
But I think you will see, and I think it's already starting to happen, that some of these guest houses and B&Bs are already starting to transition back to private individual homes.
I know.
I know there's always new ones coming,
Yeah.
but I think
But it hasn't doubled.
Well, no.
No,
it's still going up.
it's still going.
A
It's
transition
still going
that
up.
happens, you know, I mean, I think.
I'm just telling you the reasons for it. I'm not saying I'm on the front
I'm
of
just
the
saying.
I'm not saying I'm right, I'm just saying that's my opinion.
Is that some of this will take care of itself. You know, right there on Market Street, the Lynn Schmidt's old house, that's not a B&B or guest house anymore, it's a private residence now, and there's a couple of, anyway.
There's a couple other ones too.
Yeah, I'm just saying, so I don't know what you call it, a transition thing, or what you call it, but
It's called the market.
yeah, so
Well,
anyway.
the market's
okay.
not the true.
Sorry to
market.
interrupt you, I just had to.
The thing that I think we need to remember about the conditional use permit is that within we have a meeting place for the current owner of the property that's gonna be affected possibly, or at least the current owner of a place of property that they live in, and the new guest house owner to at least get together and discuss any issues they have. They can ask questions, where are you gonna have parking, or are you gonna have outdoor activities, and how late will that go? Whatever it is, and we work these out, and that's why they always get approved, because the two of them work it out. Now, if the homeowner and current homeowner doesn't show up at the meeting, which happens, then they lose the opportunity to participate. But the way it is now, the people in Herman don't even know that this is happening, and that's not very good. They should know.
If they move into R2.
Brad, we have an issue here. We're talking, and you're not. So you need to sit there and listen, or you can leave, but you can't blurt out comments. Brian is talking and I'm talking. Before that, Bruce was talking. So, anyway, you're confusing people, and please, you're gonna have to go if you're gonna do that. So, anyway, that's the problem I see, is that these things can happen, and nobody knows. They don't know. And I think that's really bad. And that's really not a very good deal. So, Brian, do you have anything else, Brian, if you think about it, let us know.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. We have a couple more people. Is Scott here?
Yeah.
Scott, would you like to come forward and talk about guest houses? Well, wait a second.
I was just gonna comment on
Well,
this.
but do you want to talk on the conditional use permit part of it?
Yeah.
Because that's what we're talking about. Okay.
Scott Egelhoff, owner of the Hoff House on 6th Street. Just bringing up, I live right down from Brian there, or actually I have a guest house right down from Brian. So just a quick comment, a couple points. The map that Brian's talking about, it took us over a year to actually find a house. I contacted Steve and told him of my interest, and I think a few people know I know I've told David my story. We came in vacation here about 10 years ago and got really interested and really just wanted to invest in Herman for actually the whole historical part of it. My kids, we come here, I'm sure you've probably seen my kid Brian playing on the road. Actually, every time I play, my kids are the only one playing on 6 that I see, quite a bit. So it took us a year to find our house. The zoning map was brutal, trying to figure out where you can go and not go. I know I talked to you, Mayor. We looked into it a little bit. I think I talked to a couple people in the city. So that was one point. It was very hard and confusing to figure out what you could do within the parameters or not. So just that's a point. Plenty of houses that Steve found for me that were in bad shape. And I wanted one that was not in great shape for that very point, to not take a house out that would possibly somebody else. I wanted something that I could afford, that I wanted to have my hands and my sweat in it with my kids, just so we could do it together. So that was a point. There's plenty of houses that need help in town. I mean, I can walk you just down 6th Street, and there's plenty we can scrutinize. So that was another one as far as conditional use. And then just the different things as far as just looking at the history of Herman. If you go back and read a lot of the old, a lot of businesses and a lot of these things, they were done this way. This is how, that's how they started. That's how downtown started. You started your business right from your home or whatnot. And so I just wanted to bring up, a lot of these people are good people that you're not trying to get 25 of them. You're trying to do something, and it really affects. It affects everything. I just want to make sure everybody does understand. Not everybody is trying to do this to where it's hurting the residents. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. The conditional use permit aspect of that, I don't quite get, but.
I just don't necessarily agree with that, because I think that it's hard for a neighbor. You know, it's like you gotta stand out there and that's what I'm saying. I just don't agree with
Yeah, I think that a conditional use permit, though, actually promotes people to talk to one another. And it's done one time for each new owner. The people that have these existing ones aren't gonna have to have a conditional use permit. It's for the new ones in R2 and R3. And we don't turn them down very often. If we turn one down or don't renew it, there's we've never done that. But there'd have to really be something wrong. And I would say that's probably not somebody that should be renewed. So the aspect that I'm concerned about is the fact that these things can happen without anybody knowing. It seems that what's fair for the buyer, it's not gonna impact really. It is gonna keep anybody from getting one or being able to buy or start a guest house. Because we really just wanna know, we want them to shake hands and move on having known each other. So that's the real thing here. Deborah Smith.
Hi. As you know, I have previously expressed my concerns regarding owner unoccupied guest houses. And my family has had an extremely negative experience with this very issue. It's been suggested that conditional use permits be discontinued, and I'm strongly opposed to this proposed change. Conditional use permits are just that, conditional. The owner must prove that he or she is meeting the requirements set forth in the permit in order to have it renewed. More importantly, nearby property owners are notified of the application and are given the opportunity to express their concerns. Without this opportunity, property could be purchased, turned into a guest house with no input from the residents who would be most affected by a guest house that would be in close proximity to their property for years. I realize that we're talking about R2 and R3, but at the last meeting, someone, and I don't know who it was, the meeting that I attended, made the statement, "You've taken R1 away from us." I would counter that they would like to take R1 away from the residents. The R stands for residential. Homeowners who built or purchased homes with the understanding that they would have neighbors and families on their streets, not businesses with total strangers cycling in and out, often loud, disruptive, with little or no regard for the families who make their homes nearby. And when do we reach the saturation point? Is it your goal to have nothing but guest houses and B&Bs in Hermann? Maybe that sounds sarcastic, maybe that sounds unrealistic, but there's already a shortage of affordable housing for first-time buyers and young families, as Brian stated. Most of these are quickly purchased as investment property, often by owners who do not live in Hermann. The enrollment in our school district has been declining for several years. There are few, if any, job opportunities, no incentives for our college graduates to return to Hermann to raise families. When is that enough? I'm anxious to see the results of the upcoming census. I'd like to know how many people still live here. The schools struggle. The hospital has struggled. At one time, those were two of the largest, if not the largest, employers in Hermann. If you've ever gone to Disney World, you enter the park through Main Street, which looks like a lovely traditional street in a typical small town. But it isn't. What looks like small town America is false fronts with no people. And I fear that this is where we're headed. There's so much emphasis on tourism and visitors that the needs of the citizens seem to be taking a back seat. You were elected by the residents of this town to protect the interests of the residents. Please uphold that obligation and consider the interests of the people who live here, supporting our local businesses all year long, who patronize the grocery stores, the service stations, the hardware stores, furniture stores, restaurants, who hire local electricians, plumbers, carpenters, who seek the services of local physicians and dentists in the hospital, who attend church and support the firehouse and the Lions and the Masons and the Scouts and the schools and the Crusade Against Cancer and the food pantry. We need a voice. I appreciate you for, once again, allowing me to express my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get on to that?
Sure.
What Debbie said there is true, because I'm not against guest houses, B&B homes or inns, but stop and think about it, 'cause I was inundated with some emails that says that what we're trying to do goes against property rights. But for every one of, there's a transient place where people spend a night, there's at least 3 more citizens, 4, maybe more, that also pay property taxes. They too have the same rights. That's what we as a Board of Aldermen have to protect, is everybody. There may be 60 owners of guest houses in Hermann. We got 1,500 non-guest house owners in Hermann. So if you want to play numbers, maybe 3% own guest houses, but the rest of them don't. Their tax dollars add up too. So I commend Debbie on what she says for speaking up, because we do have to support non-guest owner B&B inns and B&B homes as well. Thank you.
The, I guess the summation here for me is that the conditional use permit is not going to keep anybody from getting a license, a permit to operate a guest house. It, not having it keeps the people that live there from knowing that one's going in. When it's so simple to go ahead and leave this in the ordinance, and then everybody can work together, I think it's a much better situation. We fulfill the rights of the people to know what's happening to their property, which oftentimes is their largest single investment of their lives. And so I think that's very important. So that's why I think it should be in there. And if there's not anybody else, then I'm real willing to, and you want to vote to take it out, then I'm willing to entertain a motion to take it out. Do we have a motion to take it out? Okay, there being no motion, then it will not be taken out, and we'll move on to the next item, which is discuss the Chamber of Commerce concerns regarding funding of the Welcome Center. Let me explain. I need direction from the board to take this off the table, because my understanding is that this is going to be handled through the Tourism Commission with the Chamber working together. Is that correct, Melissa?
Yes, that is correct, and that's what I would recommend.
Well, that's what I'm asking. So,
Yeah.
can I get a motion here to take this off the so we can take it off? We don't have to put it on every month. Can I?
Do you have a problem with that?
No, not at all. Let the committee do their work, and we'll let you know when it's time to
So
put it
moved.
back on.
Got a motion?
I'll second.
And a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this is basically a resolution, we don't need 2 readings.
What's that?
To take this off the...
No.
We're good. Okay, we're good, so that's off. AT&T cell tower. The permits have been received. We've turned around and issued permits, and AT&T says they will start construction on the cell tower in April. So that's the update on that. Hopefully they do. Calibrate pole attachment and franchise fees. We have issued an invoice. Thank you. We've issued an invoice to Calibrate for roughly 750 poles, and the amount is $10,000 and some odd dollars. So they're ready to pay that right away. So that's that. I believe, Dave, we're talking about transferring ownership of these not 69 poles, but the 69 KV, whatever. KVA poles, the big tall ones, mainly at Deerberg's property, but up in that area by, is that substation 3?
Yeah, from Industrial Park to the bridge, to the Bond Bridge.
And anyway, Dave, do you want to kind of fill us in on that?
Yeah, I just got an email from Central Electric's attorney a few days ago where she expressed her opinions and things that, in her opinion, we need to do in order to make this happen. And I'm gonna work with her on that and we'll move forward.
Okay. So we have some legal questions, and I'm sure that we will, we'll get this resolved.
We're quick, Bill, we just gave you a raise,
Okay.
February 1st. Yeah.
Okay, so that is the 69 poles, those are the tall ones. And part of the problem is, we'd like to give them to them. We want them to maintain them. And we would like to have a dedicated amount of space on each one for future use if we need it. One reason why we'd like to not, one reason why we haven't done this as in the past is this was something that Central Electric was considering trading the bridge crossing with the fiber optic in exchange for these poles. And we needed to cross the bridge with fiber optic until we would start a negotiation with Callaway Electric, at which point we had another access to the city and we no longer needed this. Now, what was an asset could become a liability.
Well, I don't think could become.
Because we don't have the equipment to handle these poles, and they're very expensive if they get knocked down. And a couple of years ago, we had 2 or 3 knocked down, and I believe it was at $80,000 or so. So if we give them away, they have to maintain them, and they give us space on them. Now, there's several ways we can do that, and Dave's gonna look into that. Okay, under any other old business?
Yes. Something, didn't expect this for a long conversation tonight, it's something just brought up earlier, we've discussed it in the past. I don't think we ever really got anywhere with it, but it is definitely a dire need with tourism town, public restrooms. Anybody got any ideas? We need public restrooms somewhere in the downtown area.
We've really looked at that. That's.
I mean, if it's not possible, it's not possible.
Well, anything's possible if you have enough money to do it. Tom brought that to our attention, Tom Durham, to my attention 2 years ago, and I've talked in this forum several times. We have one issue, one problem is that the place we'd like to put it is in a flood zone. And we're not allowed to do that, and we build it up high enough, then we have 15 steps to get up to it, and we have to make a ramp for handicap, so that's not practical. We talked to a private citizen at one time about possibly building. This person would build it and we would lease it from them and clean it and maintain it and all that. That really hasn't come to anything yet. Maybe that'll be started up again. There are not a lot of places to put one, but we need one badly. I think it's something that we should maybe put in the budget for next year and start to the best place to put it is someplace down on Gutenberg maybe, but that's in the flood zone. So
Gutenberg's actually a little far east, I would think more somewhere along between from 1st to 3rd, the Schiller corridor, somewhere along in that area. That's where you get the foot traffic.
And we also looked at by the firehouse, and that turned out to belong to the firehouse, and they didn't really want a public restroom there. So we have to do some homework on that. But it's a good idea. We need it. So let's keep on it and not let it die. Okay, any other?
I have old business.
Excuse me?
I have old business.
Okay.
It's been several months on Reserve Street, putting up some kind of reflection for people coming west and east, and what we have there is nothing really permanent. Are they gonna try and put something more permanent?
Jesse was looking at some lighting for that area. I think there's a way.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other old business? We have, the next item is a smoking ban for public venues. I put that on there because I was asked by 3 people at one place that I was having lunch, if we could discuss it. And like I told them, we did consider it at one time, and since there were only 2 or 3 restaurants that allowed smoking, I think the decision here was let them handle it themselves. And if they don't want smoking, then let them ban it. Some of them might think it helps their business because they're the only ones that allow smoking, so that's their right to do that. So it's on here because I was asked to put it on here. There's also another thing that's come up that somebody suggested to me when they saw this, and that is that it's possible that the main establishment that wanted a ban wants us to do the ban because they don't want to tell their own customers that they're trying to turn it into a no smoking restaurant or facility without giving away their names. And Dave told me that that actually happened in Washington when they did go ahead and ban it, but there was one person that wanted it done and wanted the city to be the bad guy. And I think we have a perfectly good solution to this problem, but I brought it up, and that is to let the businesses themselves decide if they want smoking in their own restaurant or bar or whatever. But I brought it up, so if you all want to talk about it.
Well, I've voiced my opinion on this before, and I'll do it again. I know there's been mention here about property owners' rights. Smoking bans are a thing. I mean, it'll eventually come. Cigarettes are legal. I mean, I don't care if you like them or don't. I was a smoker for many, many, many years. I haven't smoked for almost 13 years. But if a place is full of cigarette smoke, I just don't go into it. I don't go in there and bitch at people about allowing smoking. If you've got a business here that's smoke-free and a business here that allows smoking, the customers will decide where they want to go. If you want to pass an ordinance that if someone in town puts up a no smoking sign in their business and they tell somebody they can't smoke and they have a right, then we can enforce that for them. I don't have a problem with that. But to tell people that they can't let their customers do what they want to inside their building is for a legal deal. I mean, it just seems a little bit strange to me.
To kind of clarify this, I don't think this would apply, I don't think it would apply to a private club any more than a private house. And I get the feeling this might have been a private club that wanted us to ban it.
Well, the Eagles themselves, I'm an Eagle member, have taken several votes on this, and they have remained smoking. And that maybe the ones that didn't get their way would like us to do that. But there again, that's a private club. That's not a public deal.
That's what I thought, and I think, Dave, have you found any different that private club can make their own rules basically as long as they, I guess, don't discriminate, but.
I haven't spent any time on that.
Yeah, don't do that.
If you guys tell me, it sounds like it's not even close, like you're not even
I'll
gonna
tell you this, I think it should be left up to individual businesses. If they have a business confined by roof and walls and they don't want smoking, but yet they have a outdoor area, and if they want to let the smokers go out there, let them go outside. Then they can please both people, not make a stand, but it should be an individual business decision, not have the city step in to govern, because we do enough of that.
Okay.
And we had a business do just that here a year or two ago. A new business opened up, they didn't want smoking inside, but they put a outside smoking area and it has worked well. To me, the ultimate hypocrisy is sitting on a bar stool, half toasted, drinking a highball and bitching about the person next to you with a lit cigarette. That cigarette pack and that bottle of whiskey got the same warning label on it. So, but like I said, I'd leave it to the individual owner.
Okay, is there anything else, because Grant wants to talk about this.
And I would say, you have moment of clarity right there, or a broken clock is right twice a day. I told you we could find something we agree on. If you come over and talk to me more, we might be able to find out more.
Maybe so.
Totally agree with you on that, I don't need to say it.
There's that, so that's that.
I have one thing I need to ask a question about. A citizen asked me, is there any way the alley could be one way between Schiller and Market, between 3rd and 4th Street? I have an emergency phone call, I think.
Sure.
But that's my question.
Schiller and Market, they run parallel. Third Street.
The alley.
where there's no alley
One way.
between.
We need a little clarification on
Yeah,
that one.
Schiller and Market Street
I
right
think,
there.
I think they're talking about the one between Third and Fourth Street.
Behind German.
Behind the German school building, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I had the same question, yeah.
Okay, well, while she is taking this to an emergency call, why don't we start in citizens' comments? And so I have citizens' comments. Let's try to keep them short and not something we've already discussed
I'm sorry.
either tonight or last time or the time before that or the time before that. So let me figure out who we have here.
Susan's back.
I'm back.
Susan, can you go ahead and finish with your?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the alley behind the Jones School?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, from there to Subway.
Which way would you want to make it one way?
I would want it to go from east to west.
So from the German School to Subway?
Yes.
Why?
This person is concerned about how fast traffic goes through there, and there's a lot of foot traffic there at Subway and Junk Love. That was their concern.
Well, they can go fast either way.
Right,
Yeah.
right. They just asked, so
And
That's why
but
I'm
if you do it
asking
one
you
way
guys.
this way, then the people, Junk Love's got their other store there in their
Mhm.
parking lot, they'd have to go all the way around the block to get to their parking lot.
okay. I'm just asking because
Okay.
this person wanted to ask, so.
No, I'm just
Right,
looking at negatives.
I know, and that's why I asked the question.
Okay.
And if
anything-
speeding's a problem, we can ask the police that a little bit.
The shape of the alley, they shouldn't be speeding.
No.
Right.
And their potholes?
Oh, yeah.
We got speed bumps in there.
We put more
We're not.
potholes, install more potholes.
Yes.
Okay, let's do the citizens' comments. We have a couple people that might want to do that. Kevin, do you want to speak in citizens' comments?
On your,
Better come up.
you having fun?
Am I having fun?
Yeah.
Do I look like I'm having fun?
Not really.
Okay.
I am. Hey, I love it. You know, I on this CUP, the thing that I don't get.
Kevin, that's been discussed.
I know, but I gotta ask you a question.
Sure.
What kind of opinion do you have on a house up 3rd Street, west, 5th, 6th, 7th, that's in Desiree, needs help? Nobody's doing anything about it. You guys don't have no jobs for those guys to buy the house, to remodel the house, to repair the house.
I don't think.
No, what I'm asking is, I would like to buy a few of them and remodel them, but you know what I wanna do with them? Make them like a family home, like I've done my own. But until it can become a family-owned home, I'd like to rent it out as a guest house.
Well, why don't
These
you
are
buy
all
them and
one?
fix them up?
Are these R1 or R2, Kevin?
You know, I don't know, but there's quite a few of them that I would like to do.
Here.
But Mr. Mayor, I'm kind of asking, it doesn't really matter to me where they're at. It should matter to you with a bad house in the middle of our nice town, if somebody would take the effort to fix that up and make that a nice home, maybe we could get by without this CUP.
I don't think that this really has anything to do that won't keep you from doing that. You would buy it and,
But he wants to use it as a guest house until he can sell it.
Yeah,
Is that what you just said?
well, I mean,
Okay.
yeah, but I mean, why, conditional use.
Well, R1, it would not be allowed.
No, not in R1. And here's a bath, by the way. You want it?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Big enough you can actually read.
I just wondered if there was a plan, because you know a lot of people are taking these.
If it's an R2 or R3, we'll look at it, I'll come down and we can talk about it and look at it. I'll really help you with that.
Fair enough.
Okay, thanks,
Okay.
Kevin. Mike, do you
Oh,
wanna,
Kevin?
Yeah.
Thanks for the straw bales, appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Mike, no, okay. Olin Stimmy, do you wanna make a citizen's comment?
Have to come up and make it
No, you gotta come up.
I guess I just really want to express my disappointment in the Board of Aldermen that you have ignored
the tradition that we established, this is regarding the 2%.
Okay.
The tradition we established to protect, and the lodging community was solidly behind it, the 3%. And we were afraid of the 5%, and we're certainly afraid of it now. And I think that you folks have moved ahead and put it on the ballot, as Tom Durham talked about, and as the executive director of the chamber talked about in an earlier meeting, getting the complete information of the economic impacts, which Alderman Cox talked about in terms of the economic impacts of an additional 2% on our lodging community and their visitor rate. Because there's already started in transitioning of guest houses, perhaps some of the Airbnb type of guest houses with no posting, no breakfast at all, type of operations. And I really think that there wouldn't have been any particular problem. And I think the chamber, and I can't speak for the executive director, but the chamber membership, particularly in the lodging group, in their meeting this past Monday, were appreciative of the fact that it was going to be postponed until later in the year, till these studies could be accomplished. And I think we're in a rush to get it done before the election.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Owen.
But it's not on the ballot yet.
But
No,
no,
Okay.
but
it needs another reading.
it's obvious to us in the lodging community the disservice that you've done by not fully exploring the issue. And maybe the lodging community needs to be proactive in getting it voted.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, this is the last one.
In response to Kevin's, when Kevin got up and talked, and he said,
Would you go? Since everybody else is ahead, would hate for you not.
The people at home really like to see you talk.
okay, this is to the mayor.
Okay?
And Kevin asked you, there's a few homes that I would like to fix up. And you said to him, well, I have no problem with that. They're to be used as guest houses. They should require the CUP.
Well, they will.
Yeah.
Obviously
Yeah,
will.
but none of this good old boy,
I don't do that.
No, there is no good old boy stuff.
but that's the way you made it sound.
No. Kevin knows better than that.
Yeah,
I
well,
don't
come
know
on
how
down,
many
Kevin, we'll
times-
talk about it.
Well, I was talking about the map, so he could read where the zones were. Because R1 is not gonna happen. R2 and 3 with a conditional use permit.
Exactly.
Okay.
Everybody has to go by this.
Yes, ma'am.
Exactly.
Everybody.
Absolutely. Okay, this is absolutely the last one.
Okay, I just want to make a few comments on things that cropped up after I was up here last, so they're not rehashing anything. And there's just like 6 brief points. On the subject about Airbnbs, and Trish did point out that they're being very diligent in trying to locate where those might be happening that we're unaware of. But maybe something should be sent out to the public for anybody entertaining the idea of, hey, I just want to make a few extra dollars. I'm just going to rent out my home for this summer because I'm going to be traveling anyway. Maybe something should be sent out citywide that puts people on alert that this is just not a thing that is going to be acceptable, that people can just on a whim decide to start renting rooms out of their house. Because they may be innocently unaware that there's an issue there.
That's a
So
very
just
good
to
point.
put them on alert that there's a possible issue if they decide to do that. Secondly, on the RV park where you have the RVs coming in and people are doing the same thing, why not when they go to get their license or their permit to have that reservation for that particular date, verbiage being placed in there that they have to sign off on saying that they are using it for their own personal use. and not for the purpose of renting it out to third party. So that's just another suggestion on the RV situation. On the restrooms subject, what about restrooms behind the German School Museum? There seems to be room there for another building right behind the German School Museum. When I say behind, I mean behind the front. You have your front entrance on Schiller, and behind there, could there not be a separate building similar to the one we have down at the amphitheater that would not be locked or gated except on hours that you would think nobody should be in there, but most of the time open? So anybody in that business area has somebody walk in and say, can I use your restroom?
Are you
And
talking
say,
about inside that wrought iron fence?
Yeah.
That's not city property.
Well, can we make a deal with them?
Well, possibly, but I would doubt that, but there may be some place nearby that we could make a deal. There's some
Corner of
backs.
the parking lot? or something?
You know, there may be some.
Okay, I'm just saying,
That would not
that's
be
an
bad.
area to me that would be conducive to all those shops in there who have that problem, someone looking for a restroom, can send them there. And going to the smoking in restaurants and in public areas, I will say that some of my guests are surprised that they find smoking in places because they come over from Illinois or they come from Kansas City where smoking is banned in all public areas. They're just taken a little off guard when they go in, they sit down and suddenly they realize they're in a smoking establishment. So even though you're letting the owners of the businesses decide whether smoking's allowed or not, what about having a little sign at the entrance, somewhere near the entrance, here I'm typing 4 signs, but that would say, to the effect, that smoking is permitted on this property. So that right there, they can decide at the front door, oh, I'm allergic, because some people are definitely allergic to smoke. It's not just a matter of taste. Like you're saying, well, it's hypocritical to have a highball when someone's smoking next to you. But what if you have a severe allergic reaction to cigarette smoke?
It does happen.
Yeah, and somebody might need to know before they enter that building that smoking has taken place in that building. So that's just a thought, to put let tourists know that smoking's allowed on that property. And that's it, and may I have a map, please?
Sure.
I would say as far as sign goes, that would get all back to the property owner to have the sign up if that's what they want.
I think it's an excellent idea.
Okay, that concludes the citizens' comments.
Am I gonna get a chance to talk on that or put a name in up there?
I did as well.
Well, you talk.
No, this is you.
Okay, you should. Let's let the man talk, and then you can bring it up if you want to.
I have a few questions regarding the safety issues on there. 2015, the city adopted the International Building Codes for fire, plumbing, residential, mechanical, and fuel, correct? And then also the 2014 National Electric Code, correct? Is there anything in the ordinance as far as safety issues that is not in those codes?
I don't think so.
So why are we picking out one specific type of business and saying you have to?
It's better to name the rules than it is to allow them to be implied.
What about all the other types of businesses in Hermann?
We're not talking about those, we're talking about this.
Well, I am, that's what I'm saying.
Well, what do you want to talk about? This is,
Do you know how many, all right, whenever I sell a house in town, do you know how many required inspections are done on every house that is sold in town?
no,
0.
okay.
Not one.
Do you want some?
That's up to you guys.
Well, I mean.
But what I'm saying is you're trying to implicate
Because
this
I don't
on
know,
these.
I thought that would be a good thing.
Well, you want to talk safety in that. We
Well,
have actually more
we
issues
have-
with
we
people
have a building
pass their
inspector.
way in a residential property
We
that's
have-
either rented,
Okay.
okay?
We have a building inspector who has a checklist of items that he goes
What
over.
I'm asking my question is though, is why are you singling out guest houses, hotels, motels, and B&Bs? Why are you not going with every house that's sold? It's called an occupancy code permit. That's
Yeah,
down-
New Haven has those.
New Haven has it, Washington has it,
Right.
all other places have
Are
it.
you advocating we look into just?
I'm not advocating anything. I'm advocating that you don't single out a certain type of
Then I don't understand, if
business.
you want us to look into that, and that's what you're saying, then we can certainly do that.
That's up to you guys.
But you
which one
can't
you-
argue both sides of the coin.
I'm arguing that you're singling out a certain type of business.
We are asking businesses that rent short-term, overnight lodging to visitors from somewhere else to make sure they have some very basic safety items.
Well, and we already have that in the codes, do we not?
No.
Well, I think you gotta understand, you're trying to nail two things here. We have a business or we have a residential. I bought a home when I came back to Herman. It was my prerogative if I wanted the house to be inspected. Been around enough, I know enough to be dangerous, but I kind of walked through it. I walked through other houses where the old wiring that I knew was going to $20,000 to replace it.
Right.
So I used that. But now we're talking a business that is actually open for public. And that's what we want to make sure that the public
But a
is
certain type of
protected.
business only.
For public.
All right. There's, any business is open to
But
public.
each one of them does have their own regulations also.
Where are they? Where's their ordinance for?
We
How
can
do
do
we-
that. We'll start
you know what I
drawing
mean?
up ordinances for car dealers and.
Why don't, I mean, if it's good for one, it's good for all. is it not?
Antique stores and what have you, we can draw an ordinance up for each one of them.
Guest houses, B&Bs, all these guys that are being demonized for, just because it's a way to make some extra money off you guys. That's what I see a lot of.
Well, just to clarify something, I think your initial question was, aren't all of the safety requirements of the ordinance also in the building code?
Are they not all covered in that code?
I don't know. The regulations, number one is indicate the number of guest rooms and the occupancy for each room. Provide signs indicating maximum occupancy of the lodging establishment. The street address of the building shall be posted and visible at the front entrance. Exit signs installed over exit doors. Smoke alarms in each guest room and in the hallway. One charged fire extinguisher, 2 avenues of egress. And a register shall be maintained indicating the name of the person renting the bed and breakfast, and that's not in the building code.
Right.
And then, so I would say that none of those first 8 things you're gonna find in the International Building Code, so they are in addition to the code.
In addition to?
And then number 9 says every lodging establishment shall comply with the International Building Code. So I think we did take some care not to just repeat stuff, you know.
Well, I didn't know, I haven't read through all the IBC codes and stuff like that, so that's what I was asking, is this kind of redundant doing that? I mean, what's the purpose of it? And why are we not doing it with any business? I mean, every single business, you know? I've had a business going for 20 years downtown. Nobody's ever come and inspected my building, never looked at anything at all, you know? Why are we singling out guest house and B&Bs? On to a couple other things. In the R1 district, do residents have the right to know who's purchasing the property next to them? Before it's sold?
It can't be a guest house, so that.
No, I'm just saying in
No.
general.
You mean if somebody bought the house next door?
Yeah.
No.
So, what's the difference with R2?
Because it's a business that's gonna move in next door to them, and it's not to keep them from doing it, it's so that they have some idea what's going on.
You said earlier that you don't think that any of them will ever get declined or anything, then what's the point in having it all?
Well, that's a good question, I'm glad you asked that. As I've said now 4 or 5 times, the reason is that at the current time, the owners have no idea that one's coming in.
It's not their property. It's not their property.
Yeah, it is, they pay.
No, the adjoining lot is not their property, they have no say-so on it.
They need to know what's happening.
Why? It is not their property, they have no say-so on somebody else's property, they should not.
Okay.
That's where the property
That's your
rights issue
opinion.
comes in.
And that's your opinion.
Okay, so.
What else? Okay.
Well, that's pretty, whatever.
Okay, thank you.
So anyhow, look forward to some discrimination lawsuits,
Yeah,
because that's
sure.
probably what you guys are gonna have come up with.
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
That goes to my point.
Well, Brad, we're gonna talk about your point in closed session at the next meeting, and I hope you'll be there. Okay? Now, that covers us down to motions. We're gonna do the motions, and I'm gonna do my minutes report. The minutes, what do we wanna do with the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's taken care of. Invoices for payments.
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded to pay the bills. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Invoices are paid. Conditional use permit, Stomping Grounds, Jamie and Beth Walker, outdoor liquor consumption, 214 East First Street.
Chief, any problem?
No.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's approved. Uses approved. Reappoint Stan Stevens to the Tree Commission.
Make a motion to approve, please.
No second.
We have a motion made and seconded to reappoint Stan Stevens. Is all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's it. Now I'm going to take and read my report, and I hope that you'll bear with me. It's a little long. I've been deliberating for several months whether or not to seek a third term as mayor of our great city. A few days ago, I decided that I would not file for a third term. This was an extremely difficult decision for me. My purpose for running for mayor in the first place was never about mayoral prestige or status. It was not about the authority or influence that the title carries either. It was entirely about service to the city and getting important things done. Sharon and I had only been here about a year and a half, and we recognized that improvements were needed, and having many years of experience as a CEO of several companies, I was confident that I could help. I'm also felt that our Board of Aldermen identify the same problems and would do their part to help. I am very satisfied with the improvements that the city has achieved during the last 4 years. I'm not interested in any credit for these achievements. I'm simply listing improvements made in the last 4 years, which are a direct result of the hard work of everyone, including the city workers and volunteers who worked hard on our city committees and commissions, and of course the Board of Aldermen. President Truman said, "You would be surprised what you can accomplish if you don't mind who gets the credit." As you continue reading this, or as I continue reading this, please try to think about the city as it existed 4 or 5 years ago. These are the major improvements that have been made. The attitude of Hermann community has been changed from we're a city in decline to we're the prettiest and most progressive small community in Missouri. The operating and infrastructure problems with our utilities have been corrected, and they are all operating smoothly and profitably, which was not the case before. About 50 new retail businesses have been opened in the last 4 years. Our retail sales revenue is the highest ever, and our tourism, as calculated using the lodging tax paradigm, has broken new records every year. Hermann City parks have been improved. The swimming pool has been upgraded. A new kiddie pool was built. Newer and safer children's playground equipment was added. A lighted youth basketball court was installed, and the baseball field, restrooms, and concession stands were completely renovated in partnership with Hermann High School Booster Club. Our caboose has been renovated by a volunteer committee, and our 1906 firehouse renovation was finished in 2017, funded by donated funds, and is now the proud home of the Hermann Area Chamber of Commerce. $500,000 of new sidewalks were built downtown with grant money, and several new streets have been rebuilt. The Veterans Memorial Parkway has been completed by hard-working volunteers who solicited donations to build a beautiful tribute to all the veterans who have sacrificed so much for us. Additionally, fiber optic communication has been installed citywide and is now operating in Hermann, and the taxpayers approved an 18-year plan to resurface all of our city streets starting in 2020. The Scenic Regional Library has committed to build a state-of-the-art library in the old Alco building, which will include children's, teens, and adult-specific sections. A new AT&T cell tower will be built in the spring of 2020. Helpful city ordinances have been passed for sign control, city bus regulation, and hopefully safety for tourists staying in our lodging establishments. There are still many things left to accomplish. Here's a short list. A rolling revised action plan must be developed to detail the repairing and rebuilding of our city streets. A partnership with local contractors should be established to produce desirable housing which is desperately needed in Hermann, so that we can attract and retain families and assimilate them into our community. We need to hire a business development director, a function that is not currently addressed. The city needs this effort so that we can increase the number of better paying jobs for our workers and attract new companies to our city. We should continue our efforts to convince MoDOT to build a new bridge over Freen Creek. Excuse me. Any resulting plan must allow the nearby businesses to continue to operate as they are at present and to flourish. Submit a proposal for another $500,000 sidewalk grant to finish the sidewalks along West 2nd Street, across from the Deutsheim State Historic Site, westward, and also from the VFW to the new library building at Bavarian Hills. Did I get that right? No. Okay, good. And then north along 19 to the old Freen Creek Bridge. Consider lowering of the residential electric meter fees and the substitution of a new rate structure that would make up for the loss while being fairer and cheaper for our residential electric users. We must continue to work closely with our electric cooperative partner, MOPEP Mapua, for electric cost reductions in the form of renewable power and cost savings through the removal of our demand cap, and translate these changes into savings passed on to our largest commercial customers. It is also essential that we continue to emphasize and increase our historically successful tourism business. The job of Hermann Mayor is complex if he or she wants to do the best job possible. Simply stated from the city code book, the mayor's job is general supervision of the city and city offices, the city administrator being his primary assistant. Additional duties are the monitoring and enforcement of city, state, and federal laws and codes within the city. The mayor should also join, attend, and participate in the primary statewide municipal-related organizations, such as Missouri Municipal League, Missouri Mayors Association, Missouri Regional Planning Commission, and MOPEP Mapua committees, showing support by, and also show support by attending meetings of our city committees and commissions. Change is not an easy thing to embrace when compared to the old way of doing things, but change will be crucial to the continued success and development of Hermann into the community that we want and need. I hope this community will develop an enjoyable balance between the different types of businesses, our residents, our growth, our wealth distribution, our city government, and our environment. We must reduce unnecessary friction between sometimes selfish special interest groups and residents. This will be achieved in time because all sides need each other far more than they realize. Saying goodbye to the title of the mayor was a serious decision. I won't necessarily miss the title, but I will miss being able to help people in our great town. Be assured that I will remain hard at work until my last official day, so call me if you need me. Now I've got to get back to work. Thank you. Okay, now the next thing is, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Made and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bruce, I need to talk.
You got
You want a match? Take one of these. Same thing. Well, thank you.
Hey, dear, don't take that personal now, what
No offense to everything else you did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.